My name is Evelyn Johnson. I'm 66 years old and my daughter Tanya accidentally sent me a voice message intended for her husband Darnell. What I heard about myself in that recording prompted me to leave the very next morning, with a plan she never saw coming. Darnell, I can't take having my mother in this house anymore. I heard my daughter's voice, cold and sharp, a chilling tone that sent a shiver down my spine. The casual cruelty was shocking. She's a nuisance. She gets into everything. And on top of that, we're already spending so much money on her. I've been looking into some cheap places. I found one that only costs $800 a month. In that moment, the world tilted on its axis. This was the same daughter I'd slaved for, day and night, cleaning other people's houses to provide for her. The same daughter whose college education I'd funded by selling my jewelry. The same daughter I'd comforted when Marcus left her at the altar the first time, using my life savings to convince him to return. But the audio continued, and what followed was even more devastating. Also, I've already checked the house papers. It's in her name, but I found a way to transfer it to our name without her realizing. My cousin Latrice, who works at the county clerk's office, is going to help me. My hands trembled so violently I nearly dropped the phone, my chest pounding as if the world itself had turned against me. My own daughter was planning to steal my house, the one thing of value I possessed in this world, the house I'd built brick by brick, with the sweat of my brow, working 12-hour days for 30 years. The sheer betrayal was agonizing. But what hurt most was the callous laughter at the end of the message. In a month, Mom will be in the home and will own everything. We can finally live in peace without that bitter old woman controlling us. If you've ever experienced such profound betrayal from someone you love, you'll understand the depth of my pain. But what Tanya didn't know was that her mother wasn't as naive as she thought. After 66 years on this earth, I've learned that sometimes self-preservation demands equal measures of cunning. I didn't sleep a wink that night, pacing the floor with tears streaming, my mind racing with betrayal and fury. At dawn, I arose with a resolve I hadn't felt in years. I donned my most elegant crimson suit, gathered my vital documents and left the house, a smile playing on my lips, armed with a plan that would irrevocably alter everything. To fully comprehend the depth of my hurt, I need to share my life story, the journey that shaped me into the woman I am today, and how my relationship with Tanya became the most significant aspect of my existence. I grew up in a family where love was inextricably linked to sacrifice. My mother, may she rest in peace, worked as a seamstress from 5 a.m. until 10 p.m. to support me and my 3 siblings. We were never wealthy, but we were rich in love, respect, and strong moral values. Evelyn Johnson, my mother would say, teaching me to so in this life the only thing that matters is family, and for family you give everything to the last drop of your blood. When I became pregnant with Tanya at 18, her father vanished without a trace. One night he was there promising marriage. The next morning he was gone. His parents slammed the door in my face when I sought him out, declaring their son wouldn't ruin his future for some random girl. That's when my mother truly revealed her strength and unwavering devotion. That child is going to have everything we couldn't, she told me, embracing me and wiping away my tears. We'll raise her together so she can be a good woman. My mother sold her only 2 gold bracelets, her only jewelry, to provide for me and the baby. When Tanya was born, it felt as if an angel had arrived. She was the most beautiful baby I had ever seen, with large, captivating eyes and a smile that illuminated the room. My mother and I shared childcare responsibilities while I worked. I began cleaning houses at 19, earning a meager $20 a day, but every penny was for Tanya. I remember vividly the first day I took Tanya to kindergarten. We walked because we couldn't afford the bus, but she wore her uniform, perfectly ironed, her shoes gleaming. The other mothers arrived in luxurious cars, impeccably dressed, and I felt dwarfed in my patched-up dress and calloused hands. Yet, when Tanya kissed my cheek and said, "Thank you, Mom. You're the best in the world," I knew it had all been worthwhile. The years unfolded in a predictable rhythm. Wake up at 4 a.m., prepare breakfast for Tanya, take her to school, clean 3 houses until 6 p.m., pick her up, help with homework and tuck her into bed with a story. On weekends I did laundry for extra money, all to ensure she had a better life than mine. My mother passed away when Tanya was 8, but before she left, she made a promise I'll never forget. Evelyn Johnson, that child is your greatest treasure. Give her an education. Give her love, and she will take care of you when you're old. Our family's blood is good. She won't fail you. Those words fueled my perseverance, even when the challenges felt insurmountable. When Tanya turned 15, I worked extra shifts for 6 months to give her the party she deserved, spending $3,500 on the celebration, money I'd been saving to repair our leaky roof. But seeing the joy on her face that night, watching her shine in her golden dress as she danced, was beyond price. "Mom, I don't know how you give me so much when you have almost nothing," she told me that night, embracing me tightly. "When I grow up, I'm going to give all this back to you multiplied by 1,000. Throughout high school, Tanya excelled. She achieved top marks, participated in school plays, and her teachers predicted a brilliant future. But maintaining her academic success wasn't inexpensive. Books, uniforms, field trips. It all demanded money I didn't have. I started cleaning a fourth house on Sundays, my only day off, to cover the costs. When it came time for college, the annual tuition was $15,000. I earned only $400 a month cleaning houses. The math was daunting, but a mother finds a way. I secured a loan using my house as collateral. I sold the only engagement ring her father had given me before abandoning us. I even sold my mother's sewing machine. "My daughter," I told Tanya the day I took her to enroll, "I couldn't go to college, but you are going to be a professional. You'll have a degree. You'll work in an office with air conditioning, and you'll never have to clean other people's houses like your mother." That day, tears of joy streamed down my face as I watched my daughter sign the enrollment papers for her business administration degree. For all 4 years of college, I worked tirelessly to cover her expenses. Books, projects, socializing, appropriate attire for presentations. I provided everything, even if it meant subsisting on beans and tortillas for a week to save money. Her graduation was the proudest moment of my life. Watching my daughter walk across the stage in her cap and gown, hearing her name announced, and the thunderous applause felt like a culmination of all my sacrifices. After the ceremony, she hugged me, weeping, and said, "Mom, this is as much yours as it is mine. I would never have made it here without you. I promise you that now that I'm a professional, you will never have to suffer again." A year later, Tanya met Marcus. Initially, I was overjoyed. She seemed so content and deeply in love. Marcus appeared to be a good man, holding a stable job as a factory supervisor, and he treated my daughter well. When he proposed, I wept with emotion, believing Tanya would finally have the stable family I'd been unable to provide. But organizing the wedding was another significant financial strain. Tanya desired an elegant affair, the kind depicted in magazines. The venue cost $8,000, the dress $2,000, the music $800, the flowers $600. In total, I spent $10,000 on the wedding, secured through another loan and the sale of my remaining jewelry. The initial years of their marriage were idyllic. Tanya and Marcus visited every Sunday. We'd dine together, and Tanya consistently contributed to household expenses. "Mom, now that I'm working, I want to take care of you the way you took care of me," she would say, handing me money for groceries. Finally, my sacrifices seemed to have borne fruit. I had a grateful daughter who genuinely loved me. But everything shifted 3 years ago when Marcus lost his job, plunging them into financial difficulties. They began constantly requesting money, and as always, I couldn't refuse. It started with $1,000 for monthly expenses, then $2,500 for a car down payment, then $3,000 to settle credit card debt. Everything subtly changed after that $3,000 loan. At first, I rationalized the small shifts, attributing them to the stress of their financial struggles. Now, after hearing that message, I understand it wasn't stress. It was a calculated plan to remove me from their lives. The first sign was their cessation of Sunday visits. "Mom, we're so busy with Marcus's new job," Tanya would explain on the phone. "You know how it is. We need to show we're responsible. I understood, or at least I thought I did. It seemed natural for a young couple to prioritize their future. But then the excuses for not answering my calls began. I'd call in the mornings. Mom, I'm in an important meeting. I'll call you later. In the afternoons. Oh, Mom, I'm at the grocery store doing our weekly shopping. At night. Mom, it's too late. We're having dinner. We'll talk tomorrow. That tomorrow never arrived. And when we did speak, the conversations barely lasted 5 minutes. Then came the hurtful comments veiled as concern. Mom, Marcus says he's noticed you've been very forgetful lately, she said during one of our rare calls. Are you sure you can live alone in that big house? At your age, anything could happen. I laughed nervously, dismissing their concerns as exaggerations, but the seed of doubt had been planted. One afternoon, I surprised them with a visit, bringing Marcus's favorite pineapple dessert. When I knocked, I heard laughter and voices, but it took them nearly 5 minutes to answer. Oh, Mom, what a surprise, Tanya said with a forced smile that didn't reach her eyes. We were just organizing some work papers. Inside was her cousin Latrice, the county clerk's office employee, with documents scattered on the kitchen table. Upon seeing me, Latrice quickly gathered the papers and stuffed them into a folder. Hello, Aunt Evelyn Johnson. She greeted me with her usual disingenuous smile. I was just helping Tanya with some of Marcus's health insurance paperwork. But I glimpsed my name on one of the documents before Latrice concealed them. Why do you need papers with my name on them? I asked, genuinely curious. Tanya and Latrice exchanged a look I couldn't decipher then, but understand perfectly now. It's just to update the beneficiaries on the insurance. Mom, Tanya explained, in case something happens to us, you're our only family. That explanation soothed me at the time, but later, I noticed that whenever I mentioned the subject, Tanya would swiftly change the topic. Mom, why don't you tell me about the garden? Or, oh, Mom, did you see the new show that's on Channel 5? Then came the deliberate absences. They'd invite me to lunch, and when I arrived, they weren't there. Oh, Mom, we forgot to tell you we had to cancel, they'd say later. Marcus had a work emergency. This happened 3 times in 2 months. The 4th time I sat alone in that restaurant for an hour feeling foolish. While other families enjoyed their meals, they began excluding me from important family events. I discovered by chance from my neighbor Miss Hattie that they'd held a barbecue to celebrate Marcus's birthday. How strange you weren't there, Evelyn Johnson, Miss Hattie remarked. I saw them buying meat for like 20 people at the supermarket. When I questioned Tanya, she replied, Oh, Mom, it was a very informal thing. We didn't want to bother you. But the final straw was their decision to move into my house temporarily. Mom, they're going to paint our apartment and we need to stay with you for about a month, Tanya announced. Besides, this way we can spend more time together. Don't you think it's perfect? I was thrilled to have them close again, hoping we'd regain our lost closeness. However, from the moment they arrived, my house felt different. Marcus complained incessantly. My television was too old, the internet too slow, the shower lacked water pressure. Aunt, this house needs a lot of repairs, he'd declare. At your age, maintaining such a big property must be very difficult. Tanya started reorganizing my belongings without asking. Mom, these plates are too old. I'm going to replace them with new ones, she'd say. And these clothes you have in the closet are so out of style. We should just donate them. Gradually, my house ceased to feel like mine. I was a guest in my own home. Then began the hushed conversations, abruptly silenced when I entered a room. I'd see them talking in the kitchen, and my arrival would prompt an immediate shift to trivial topics like the weather or news. What were you talking about? I'd ask. Nothing important, Mom, Tanya would reply. Just about the house expenses. One night I overheard Marcus on the patio speaking on the phone. Yeah, we're already living here. No, she doesn't suspect a thing. Latrice says she can have all the papers ready in 2 more weeks. When I went out to inquire, he claimed it was his boss discussing a work project. They subtly began controlling my finances. Mom, let me help you with the electric and water bills, Tanya offered. You're too old to be worrying about these things. At first, I considered it a kind gesture. But then I realized she was scrutinizing my bank statements. "Mom, why do you need so much cash?" She'd ask when she saw I'd withdrawn $200 for personal expenses. Most painful was witnessing their disparaging remarks when they believed I wasn't listening. One afternoon while tending my garden, I overheard Marcus on the phone. "My mother-in-law is getting harder to handle. She's becoming very stubborn with age." Tanya laughed in the background, adding, "It's true. Lately, she forgets things and gets very difficult when we try to help her." What truly opened my eyes was their comments about my mental health in front of others. My longtime friend, Miss Aunt Loretta, came to visit and Tanya remarked, "Oh, Aunt Loretta, my mom has been so confused lately. Yesterday she wanted to go for a walk at 10 at night because she thought it was morning." This was a blatant lie. I'd never done such a thing. Yet, I saw Aunt Loretta's pitying, concerned gaze. "Oh, Evelyn Johnson, it's a good thing you have Tanya to take care of you," she said. In that instant I felt deep anger, but also immense sadness, realizing my own daughter was fabricating a false narrative about my mental state. Strange visitors began arriving, doctors supposedly checking my blood pressure, social workers assessing my living conditions, and even a man identifying himself as a geriatric care specialist. They always came at times Tanya scheduled, never asking my consent. During one evaluation, I overheard the doctor speaking with Tanya in the living room. "Ma'am, your mother seems to be physically fine, but I'm going to note in the report that she shows signs of mild age-related confusion." I listened from the kitchen, perfectly lucid and aware. As this man documented lies about my mental state, the tension in the house became unbearable. Each day brought more pressure, more control, more hurtful comments disguised as care. "Mom, you shouldn't drive anymore," Marcus declared one day. "At your age it's too dangerous." "Mom, it's better if you don't go shopping alone anymore," Tanya added. "We can do it for you." Gradually they eroded my independence, autonomy, and dignity. Most agonizing was their pretense of concern. Their smiles suggested their actions were for my benefit, fueled by love and a desire to care for me. The moment that irrevocably changed everything occurred that Tuesday afternoon, when a simple technological error shattered my world, revealing the cruelest truth of my 66 years. The day had been particularly challenging. Tanya and Marcus had left early, claiming work matters, but I sensed something amiss. I'd seen them whispering all morning, and when I inquired, they responded with the disingenuous smiles I'd come to recognize. "It's nothing, Mom," Tanya would say. "Just boring stuff about Marcus's job." I remained alone in the house, feeling the tightness in my chest that had been growing for weeks. The house, once my sanctuary, felt like a prison. Everything had changed since their temporary move-in. My routines, my spaces, even my lifestyle, had been altered to accommodate their needs and secret plans. Around 3 p.m., I was preparing chamomile tea to soothe my nerves when my phone buzzed, a voice message from Tanya. Initially, I assumed it was an update on their tardiness or a request for a special dinner. How naive I was to believe my daughter still considered me important enough to share her plans. I pressed play, never imagining that in the next 3 minutes, my life would be ripped apart. "Marcus, I can't take having my mother in this house anymore." Tanya's voice, filled with exasperation she'd never shown me in person, sent my heart into a free fall. Those words, spoken with such contempt, felt like daggers to my soul. This wasn't the sweet daughter who hugged me and said, "I love you, Mom," every time she left. She's a total nuisance, Marcus. She gets into everything we do. Always asking questions, always there. And on top of that, we're already spending so much money on her. I've been looking into some cheap places. I found one on the outskirts that only costs $800 a month. With what we save, we can finally remodel the kitchen we want so badly and even get new furniture for the living room. Every word was a brutal blow. My own daughter, the child to whom I dedicated my life, was discussing me as if I were a discarded piece of furniture. The $800 was precisely what I'd been giving them monthly for their expenses, money from my pension and meager savings. But the audio continued, and what followed utterly destroyed me. "Also, I've already checked all the house papers. It's in her name. But Latrice already explained how we can transfer it to our name without her realizing. It's going to be about $500 in bribes and fees, but it's worth it. My cousin already has experience with these kinds of arrangements. In that instant, everything clicked into place. Latrice's casual visits with her folders full of documents, the conversations that ceased upon my arrival, the specialists who'd evaluated my home and mental state, it had all been part of a meticulously planned scheme to declare me incompetent and seize my property. My house, built brick by brick through 12-hour days for 30 years, the house where I raised Tanya, celebrated her birthdays, wept at her graduation, and dreamed of my grandchildren playing, that house worth approximately $485,000, representing all my assets, my future, my security. I already spoke with the director of the St. Francis home. Tanya's voice continued, chilling me to the core. I explained the situation. I told him that my mother has early-stage dementia, and that it's dangerous for her to live alone. He was very understanding. He says they see cases like this all the time. I've already signed all the preliminary admission papers. My legs trembled so violently I had to sit on the kitchen floor. My own daughter had lied to a stranger about my mental state. She'd signed papers to have me institutionalized without my consent, with the same casual ease one plans a vacation. The plan is perfect, honey, she continued, addressing Marcus. Next Tuesday we're going to tell her she has It was a routine medical appointment. We'll take her to the home, check her in, and before she even realizes what's happening she'll be admitted and we'll have legal guardianship. Latrice says that with the medical reports we obtained, which state she suffers from mental confusion, it will be incredibly easy to prove her incapacity for independent decision-making. Those fabricated medical reports, created with the assistance of corrupt doctors, those evaluations I'd foolishly allowed, believing they were for my own well-being, it was all a cruel charade, a meticulously constructed file designed to justify stripping me of my freedom and rights. I could hear Marcus laughing in the background, interjecting comments I couldn't fully decipher, but his tone of approval was unmistakable. The man I'd welcomed into my family, the man I'd supported financially, the man I'd treated like a son, was actively complicit in the plot to destroy my life. The best part, Tanya continued, her laughter a blade twisting in my heart, is that she'll never suspect a thing. She thinks we're the perfect, adoring children. She still says, "Thank you for taking care of me, honey," when I bring her breakfast in bed. If only she knew that I'm serving her that breakfast to keep her calm while I orchestrate her living funeral. In that instant, something within me fractured irreparably. It wasn't simply the betrayal. It wasn't merely the agony of discovering my daughter's hatred. It was the crushing humiliation of realizing that while I blessed her nightly in my prayers, thanking God for such a wonderful daughter, she was meticulously calculating the days remaining until she could be rid of me. With the house valued at $485,000, Tanya continued, we can pay off all our credit card debt, the car loan, and even have enough left over for that European vacation we've always dreamed of. And the best part is we won't have to pretend to love her anymore. No more Sundays feigning enjoyment of her dreadful cooking. No more enduring her repetitive childhood stories. Each word was a fresh stab. My cooking prepared with such love every Sunday, hoping for their visits. My stories shared to connect with them, to pass down precious family memories and history. Everything I perceived as love and connection was, to them, a burden to be endured. In a month, Mom will be in the home and will own everything, Tanya concluded. We can finally live in peace, free from that bitter old woman's control. Besides, she added, the life insurance is in our names, so if something were to happen to her at the home, God forgive me for saying this, it wouldn't be so bad. Those final words sent a chill down my spine. They weren't just after my house and freedom. They'd coldly calculated that my death would also serve their interests. They'd transformed their own mother into an investment, anticipating profit from both my life and my death. The message concluded with laughter and chatter about dinner reservations, as if they'd planned a vacation rather than the complete annihilation of the woman who'd loved them more than anything. I remained on my kitchen floor for an indeterminate time, the phone clutched in my hand, replaying the message again and again. clinging to the hope that I'd misheard, that it was a nightmare from which I'd soon awaken. But with each replay the reality grew more stark, more agonizing, more irrefutable. That night I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. All I could do was wander through my house, examining every object, every photograph, every memory I'd painstakingly created, anticipating the day I would lovingly bestow them upon my daughter. Now I knew they would be stolen, sold, or discarded without a shred of respect for the memories they held. But as I walked through my darkened house that morning, something began to shift within me. The sadness and pain started to transform into something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Pure, unyielding determination. My daughter had mistaken me for a naive, easily manipulated old woman. But she had grossly underestimated the woman who had raised her. At dawn, a clarity I hadn't experienced in months settled over me. I donned my most elegant crimson suit, the one reserved for special occasions. I grabbed my purse containing all my vital documents and left the house before Tanya and Marcus awoke. I had a plan, and they were utterly oblivious to what was about to unfold. That morning I awoke precisely at 5 a.m. As if my body instinctively knew this was the most crucial day of my life. Throughout the night I'd meticulously planned every move, every word, every detail of my actions. I was no longer the naive Evelyn Johnson who had allowed her daughter to manipulate her for months. Today, I would show Tanya she had profoundly underestimated the woman who had raised her. I put on my crimson pantsuit, the same one I'd worn to her college graduation, applied my makeup carefully, styled my hair elegantly, and donned the pearl earrings my mother had bequeathed to me. I intended to project the image of the strong, dignified woman I truly was, not the vulnerable victim they perceived me to be. Before leaving, I penned a brief note and left it on the kitchen table. Left early to attend to some personal matters. We'll be back this afternoon. Love, Mom. I provided no further details. They didn't deserve them. For months they'd made life-altering decisions without my input. Now it was my turn to act without explanation. My first stop was the bank. I arrived precisely at opening time, 8 a.m. "Good morning, Ms. Baker," greeted Shauna, the manager who'd known me for 15 years. "How can we assist you today?" "Shauna," I said, my voice firm, "I need to review all transactions on my account for the past 6 months, and I want to change all my beneficiaries. I also need you to explain if anyone has attempted unauthorized access to my accounts." Shauna's brow furrowed as she accessed my file. "Miss Baker," she said, "I have several inquiries on your account registered here, made by your daughter Tanya. She presented a letter signed by you authorizing her to review your bank statements to assist you with your finances." My blood ran cold. "Shauna, I never signed that letter. Can you show me that document?" Upon seeing the purported authorization, I immediately recognized the forged signature. It resembled mine, but the slant was entirely unfamiliar. "This is a forgery," I declared, presenting my ID for signature comparison. "My daughter has been fraudulently accessing my bank information. I need you to immediately revoke any authorization she possesses and place a security alert on my account." Shauna's face paled as she grasped the gravity of the situation. "Ms. Baker, this is extremely serious. We will immediately cancel all unauthorized access, and I strongly recommend you file a fraud report." "That's precisely what I intend to do," I replied. "But first I need to secure my assets. I want to transfer all my funds to a new account under my sole control, and I want to change the beneficiary of my life insurance." For the next hour, Shauna assisted me in securing my finances. I transferred my $8,750 savings to a completely new account, changed all passwords, and designated a charitable foundation for abandoned seniors as the beneficiary of my life insurance. Tanya would not receive a single cent of my money. My second stop was the county clerk's office, where Latrice, Tanya's accomplice cousin, worked. I arrived unannounced, with a small recorder concealed in my purse. "Good morning, Latrice," I greeted with a sweet smile. "I've come to check the status of my property. My daughter mentioned you've been assisting her with some paperwork." Latrice's demeanor immediately shifted to nervousness. "Oh, Aunt Evelyn Johnson, what are you doing here? Tanya didn't say you were coming." Her hands trembled as she attempted to quickly conceal documents on her desk. "Don't worry, Latrice," I said, maintaining my casual tone. "I simply want to better understand this insurance paperwork my daughter is handling. Could you explain the documents required bearing my name?" Latrice began to perspire. "Well, Aunt, it's just routine registry updates." Her voice cracked as she realized I knew more than I let on. "Latrice," I said, leaning forward, "I know precisely what you and my daughter have been planning. I know about the forged documents. I know about the scheme to seize my house. And I know you've been assisting her in forging documents using your position here." I produced my phone, displaying the audio recording from the previous day. "I have proof of everything." Latrice slumped in her chair. "Aunt Evelyn Johnson, I didn't want to do it, but Tanya told me you couldn't care for yourself anymore, that it was for your own good." "It was about money, Latrice. Don't pretend it was for my well-being," I stated firmly. "Now you have two choices. Either you help me rectify everything you've done, or I go straight to your boss and present the evidence of your forgery." Latrice began to cry. "Please, Aunt, I can't lose my job. I have 3 children to support." Through her tears, she divulged the entire process. How they'd forged my signature, created fake medical reports, and planned to use them to declare me incompetent and transfer my property. "All right, Latrice," I said after her confession. "You're going to help me fix this and then you'll find another job. But if you cooperate now, I won't press criminal charges." Over the next 2 hours, Latrice helped me invalidate all the fraudulent documents. She also provided me with copies as evidence, including the fake medical reports and property transfer documents. My third stop was Attorney Jamal Carter, the city's most respected lawyer. "Attorney Ford," I said, presenting the evidence, "I need your help to stop a fraud and protect my rights." Attorney Ford meticulously reviewed the documents. "Miss Baker, this is a serious case of family fraud. We have ample evidence to press criminal charges. But tell me, what exactly do you wish to achieve?" "I want justice, attorney," I replied. "But most of all, I want my daughter to learn that actions have consequences. For 66 years I've been too good, too generous, too understanding. It's time someone defended me, even if I have to do it myself." The attorney smiled with admiration. "Ms. Baker, we will devise a legal strategy that protects your rights and sends a clear message about the consequences of defrauding a senior citizen." For the next few hours, we prepared a civil lawsuit for fraud, document falsification, and attempted illegal appropriation, along with a criminal complaint against Tanya, Marcus, and Latrice. The attorney assured me I had a strong case and was highly likely to recover all damages. By late afternoon, I returned home feeling transformed. I was no longer the vulnerable victim who had left that morning. I was a woman who had reclaimed control of her life and was prepared to confront the consequences of years of allowing others to exploit her kindness. Upon my arrival, Tanya and Marcus were in the living room, watching television, as if nothing had transpired. "Hi, Mom," Tanya said with her practiced, disingenuous smile. "How were your errands?" "Very well, honey," I replied calmly. "I took care of everything I needed to." I settled into my favorite armchair, gazing intently at them. "By the way, some people are coming to visit tomorrow. I hope you'll be here to greet them." "What people, Mom?" Marcus inquired curiously. "Oh, you'll see," I replied with a cryptic smile. "They're people who will help us clarify some important matters concerning our family's future." That night, dinner was consumed in silence. I knew precisely what the next day held, but they remained utterly unaware of the impending storm. For the first time in months, I slept soundly, comforted by the knowledge that justice was on its way. The next day, at precisely 10 a.m., the doorbell rang. "I'll get it," I said, rising swiftly before Tanya or Marcus could move. At the door stood Attorney Jamal Carter, 2 police officers, and a public notary. "Good morning, Miss Baker," the attorney stated. "We've come to execute the orders we discussed yesterday." Tanya and Marcus leaped from the sofa, their expressions a mixture of utter confusion and alarm. "Mom, what's going on?" Tanya asked. "Who are these people?" "Sit down," I instructed, my voice imbued with an authority they'd never before witnessed. "It's time you learned the truth." Attorney Ford cleared his throat and began to speak. "Ms. Tanya and Mr. Marcus, I'm here on behalf of Miss Evelyn Johnson to inform you that we've uncovered irrefutable evidence of fraud, document falsification, and conspiracy to commit illegal appropriation against her." Tanya and Marcus's faces turned ashen. "What are you talking about?" Tanya stammered. "We would never do anything like that." "Tanya," I said, producing my phone, "would you like me to play the voice message you accidentally sent me yesterday for everyone to hear?" In that instant I saw the blood drain from my daughter's face, her eyes widening with pure panic as she realized her meticulously crafted plan had been foiled by her own negligence. The moment of truth had arrived, and there was no turning back. The silence in my living room was deafening, thick with dread, as if the walls themselves bore witness to the betrayal. Tanya and Marcus were petrified, staring at me as if I were a ghost. For months they'd believed they held complete control, that I was a helpless old woman they could manipulate at will. Now they realized they had profoundly underestimated the woman who had raised them. "Attorney Ford," I said, my voice firm and composed, "please proceed with the presentation of evidence." Months stretched into a blur of feeling utterly helpless, a victim in my own home. "Mom, please," Tanya screamed, her voice raw with desperation as the officer escorted her towards the door. "You can't do this to me. I'm your daughter. I'm the only thing you have in this world." Her words hung in the air, a cruel irony echoing in my ears, cutting deeper than any blade could. She, of all people, had been the one to declare me unwelcome in her world. Marcus, in stark contrast to his sister's plea, regarded me with a venomous hatred that sent a chill down my spine. "This isn't over, you crazy old lady," he hissed, his breath hot on my neck as he brushed past. "You're going to pay for ruining our lives." His threats didn't frighten me. Instead, they served as a grim confirmation that my decision to expose their scheme had been the right one. After Tanya and Marcus were taken away, an unnerving silence descended upon my house, a silence I hadn't experienced in months. For the first time since their ostensibly temporary stay, I could move freely within my own home without the constant, oppressive feeling of being watched, judged, and manipulated. This newfound peace, however, proved tragically short-lived. The following day marked the commencement of a relentless campaign of terror, a chilling demonstration of the lengths Tanya and Marcus were prepared to go to exact their revenge. The initial assault came via social media. Tanya, under a fabricated online identity, had begun posting vicious falsehoods about me in local Facebook community groups. "My mother has senile dementia and falsely accused us of theft," she wrote, her words dripping with calculated malice. "She's so confused that she doesn't recognize her own family. Please, if you see her alone on the street, call me because she shouldn't be unsupervised." The posts included surreptitiously taken photos of me, pictures where I appeared momentarily distracted or tired, which they had cruelly manipulated to suggest I suffered from severe mental health issues. The comments from strangers were deeply wounding and disheartening. "Poor woman, she looks very confused," one wrote. "How terrible for a mother to accuse her own children. They should seek professional help for her." Miss Hattie, my neighbor of many years, arrived at my doorstep, visibly distressed after encountering these malicious posts online. "Evelyn Johnson, honey, are you okay?" she asked, her concern etched on her face. "I saw some really ugly things online about you and your daughter. I had to check on you." I had to recount the entire situation, present the evidence I'd painstakingly gathered, and patiently explain the deliberate smear campaign waged against me. But the harassment escalated rapidly, intensifying in its ferocity. Phone calls bombarded me at all hours, the anonymous voices on the other end hurling insults and threats, branding me an unnatural mother who had destroyed her own family for monetary gain. "You're a miserable old woman," a female voice shrieked at 3 a.m., her words laced with venom. I hope you die alone and abandoned. Unknown individuals began appearing at my doorstep, each with a carefully crafted pretext. Fake social workers claiming to have received reports of me being in danger. Aggressive salespeople insistent on selling me overpriced security systems, emphasizing my vulnerability as a single elderly woman. Even people posing as long-lost relatives ostensibly concerned about my mental state. Attorney Ford explained the sinister strategy behind these actions. Ms. Baker, he said, his voice grave, they're trying to manufacture evidence of your supposed mental instability to discredit your testimony in court. It's a common tactic when the accused lack a robust legal defense. However, the most agonizing attacks came in the form of anonymous letters, dripping with poison and resentment. You're a failed mother, one cruelly declared. You raised a daughter who hates you so much she'd rather see you dead. Think about what you did wrong. Another letter was even more vicious. Your own children abandoned you because you're insufferable. No one will miss you when you die. These missives didn't merely target my relationship with Tanya. They viciously attacked every sacrifice I had made throughout my life. You worked as a servant your whole life, one scrawled. And for what? For your daughter to despise you. You were a fool who let herself be used. Every word was carefully chosen to pulverize my self-esteem, to make me question every decision I had ever made. One evening, after reading a particularly venomous letter, I completely broke down. I slumped onto the kitchen floor, the same spot where I had first listened to the audio recording that had irrevocably altered my life, and wept uncontrollably, the grief as raw and intense as it had been when my mother passed away. What did I do wrong? I kept asking myself, the question echoing in the desolate silence of my kitchen. How could I have raised a daughter who hates me this much? For the first time since the legal battle began, I seriously considered surrendering, giving up the fight. Perhaps it would be easier to drop the charges, forgive Tanya, and attempt to rebuild our fractured relationship. Maybe I had overreacted, misinterpreting their intentions. Perhaps deep down they did love me in their own twisted way. But just as I was about to call Attorney Ford to request the dismissal of the lawsuit, a memory surfaced, a memory that fundamentally shifted my perspective. I rose from the floor and went to my bedroom, to the small chest where I kept my most precious mementos. I searched until I found what I needed. A letter my mother had written to me shortly before her death, when Tanya was 8 years old. My dearest Evelyn Johnson, the letter began, the shaky handwriting a testament to my mother's failing health. If you are reading this, it is because I am no longer with you. But I want you to know that I am very proud of the woman and mother you are. You raised Tanya with so much love and dedication that I am sure she will be a good woman who will honor you for life. Tears streamed down my face as I continued reading. But if things ever get difficult, my mother's words continued. If someone tries to hurt you or take advantage of your good heart, remember that you are stronger than you think. Don't allow anyone, not even your own daughter, to trample on your dignity. True love never seeks to destroy, never seeks to steal, never seeks to humiliate. The final lines of the letter infused me with the strength I desperately needed. Evelyn Johnson, you deserve respect. You deserve genuine love. You deserve to live your final years in peace and dignity. If someone can't give you that, then they don't deserve to have you in their life, no matter how much blood you share with them. That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept soundly. My mother was right. True love doesn't destroy. It doesn't steal. It certainly doesn't plot the death of a loved one as a financial opportunity. What Tanya felt for me wasn't love. It was economic convenience cleverly disguised as filial affection. The next day, I awoke with a renewed sense of purpose, a steely determination in my heart. I called Attorney Ford. Attorney, I said, my voice firm and unwavering, I want you to proceed with all charges. I'm not dropping anything. I want this case to go all the way. I'm glad to hear that, Miss Baker, he replied, his tone reflecting his understanding of my resolve, because I have some important news. Tanya and Marcus are attempting to reach an out-of-court settlement. They want to avoid a public trial at all costs. What kind of settlement? I asked, my curiosity piqued. They're willing to return all the money they stole, pay for damages, and commit to never contacting you again if you drop the criminal charges. I considered their proposal carefully. On one hand, I would recover my money and be forever free from their manipulative schemes. On the other hand, they would escape facing the full legal consequences of their actions. Attorney, I finally said, a plan forming in my mind. I accept the settlement, but with one additional condition. I want them to sign a full confession of everything they did, publicly admitting that I am mentally competent and that all their accusations about my mental health were false. And I want that confession published in the same places where they defamed me. That's very intelligent, Miss Baker, the attorney responded, appreciating the strategic brilliance of my counteroffer. That will completely clear your reputation and prevent them from continuing the smear campaign. A week later, Tanya and Marcus signed the agreement. I recovered my $8,750, plus an additional $15,000 in damages. But more significant than the financial restitution was the restoration of my peace of mind and my dignity. Their public confession, while devastating for them, was immensely liberating for me. We, Tanya Baker and Marcus Williams, admit that we falsely accused Ms. Evelyn Johnson of having mental problems. The statement read, "We admit that we planned to steal her property, and that we created fraudulent documents to declare her incompetent. Ms. Evelyn Johnson is in perfect mental condition, and we invented those stories to justify our criminal actions." That day, exactly 1 month after hearing the audio that had changed my life, I realized I had accomplished something that had once seemed impossible. I had defeated those who had tried to destroy me, and I had done so with intelligence, dignity, and unwavering adherence to the law. But my story was far from over. I had a new life to build, and I knew precisely how I wanted to live it. With the legal agreement signed and my reputation completely restored, the time had come to make the most crucial decisions of my new life. I was no longer the naive Evelyn Johnson who had allowed her kindness to be exploited for decades. I was a 66-year-old woman who had learned that true strength doesn't lie in enduring abuse, but in defending oneself with intelligence and unwavering dignity. My first act was to completely revise my will. I summoned Attorney Ford to my home and dictated my new final wishes. "Attorney," I declared, "I want all my assets, including this house and all my savings, to be donated to the Golden Hope Foundation, which helps senior citizens abandoned by their families." "Are you completely sure about this decision, Miss Baker?" the attorney asked, his voice reflecting the magnitude of my decision. "It's a considerable estate, approximately $490,000, including the house, your savings, and the compensations you received." "Completely sure," I replied firmly. "I want that money to help people who truly need it, not ungrateful children who see their parents as a financial investment." I also stipulated that if Tanya attempted to contest the will, she would automatically forfeit any claim to even a single penny. My second decision was to relocate. I no longer wished to live in the house where I had been betrayed, where I had overheard my own daughter plotting my destruction. "Attorney," I instructed, "I want to sell this property and buy something smaller, more suitable to my current needs." Within 3 weeks I found the perfect place. A charming apartment in a residential complex designed for active seniors, complete with lush gardens, recreational areas, and a vibrant community of people my age who valued independence and dignity. The apartment cost $85,000. With the remaining $95,000 from the house sale, plus the legal compensation, I had sufficient funds to live comfortably for the rest of my life. But my most satisfying revenge, a revenge both perfectly legal and utterly devastating for Tanya and Marcus, stemmed from a discovery made during my investigation with the attorney. We uncovered evidence that they had consistently falsified their tax returns for the past 3 years, reporting significantly lower incomes than they actually earned to reduce their tax liability. Yet, at the same time, they maintained a lifestyle that clearly didn't align with their reported incomes. "Miss Baker," the attorney said with a knowing smile, "I have some information that might interest the IRS." He presented evidence that Marcus had been engaged in unreported side jobs, and that Tanya had been selling products online without declaring those earnings. Attorney, I responded with a smile that reached my eyes. As a responsible citizen, I believe it is my duty to report any tax evasion I'm aware of. After all, we all must contribute fairly to the country's upkeep. A week later, the IRS launched a full audit of Marcus and Tanya's finances. They discovered that they owed $22,000 in back taxes, with penalties and interest driving the total debt to $35,000. Unable to meet this financial obligation, they were forced to sell their car, pawn their jewelry, and take out high-interest loans to avoid facing jail time for tax evasion. My third act of retribution was of a professional nature. During the investigation, we also discovered that Latrice, the cousin who worked at the county clerk's office, was not the only public employee implicated in the fraud. A whole network of corruption had facilitated these thefts from elderly individuals. With Attorney Ford's assistance, we submitted all the gathered information to the relevant authorities. The subsequent investigation resulted in the dismissal of 6 public employees, including Latrice, and the uncovering of at least 12 similar cases where seniors had been defrauded using falsified documents. When the scandal erupted in the local newspapers, Tanya and Marcus became prime examples of the worst kind of children, those who preyed upon their aging parents. Their names and photographs graced the front page, splashed across headlines like "Family Betrayal Shock City" and "Children Plan to Steal 66-Year-Old Mother's Home." But my most ingenious revenge was social in nature. It transpired that Tanya worked for a prestigious company, where maintaining a pristine personal reputation was crucial for career advancement. When her boss learned about the scandal through the newspapers, he summoned her to his office for a highly uncomfortable conversation. "We cannot have employees involved in family fraud scandals," he stated, his tone leaving no room for misinterpretation. "Our company has a reputation to protect." Although he didn't fire her immediately, he demoted her to a less significant position and made it abundantly clear that she would have no opportunities for promotion in the foreseeable future. Marcus also faced professional repercussions. His supervisor, upon learning of his participation in the scheme to defraud his mother-in-law, delivered a pointed message. "If you are capable of stealing from your own family, how do we know you won't steal from us?" He lost all prospects of the promotion he had been eagerly anticipating. But what brought me the greatest satisfaction was witnessing the rejection they faced from their own friends and family. Marcus's sister severed ties with him after discovering his role in the plot against me. "How could you participate in something so cruel against an old woman who had only treated you with love?" she screamed at him during a family confrontation witnessed by several neighbors. Tanya's friends also gradually distanced themselves, the mothers in her social circle unwilling to associate with someone who had so callously betrayed her own mother. "If she's capable of doing that to the woman who gave birth to her, what won't she be capable of doing to us?" they would whisper amongst themselves. Even at the supermarket and pharmacy where they had been known for years, people pointed and whispered behind their backs. They had become a cautionary tale, a public example of how not to treat elderly parents. Throughout this ordeal, I never acted out of hatred or a thirst for revenge. Every action I took was legal, ethical, and fully justified. I didn't lie about them, I didn't invent false accusations, and I didn't threaten or physically harm them. I simply allowed the natural consequences of their actions to unfold. 6 months after the day I heard that fateful audio recording, I unexpectedly encountered Tanya at the mall. She looked haggard, exhausted, and far older than her 35 years. When she saw me, she approached, tears welling in her eyes. "Mom," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "Please forgive me. I understand you're angry, but we've already paid the price. We lost everything. Our credit is ruined. Marcus lost his promotion. I had to take a job with a lower salary. Don't you think that's punishment enough?" I looked her directly in the eyes without hatred, but also without weakness. "Tanya," I responded calmly, "I didn't punish you. The consequences of your actions punished you. You decided to plan my destruction. I simply decided to defend myself." "But we're family," she pleaded, her voice cracking. "Blood is blood, Mom. You can't abandon your only daughter. Blood doesn't give you the right to mistreat, steal from, or plan someone's death. I replied calmly, my tone unwavering. For 35 years, I was your unconditional mother. For 3 months you were my calculating executioner. You can't ask me to forget that just because you're now facing the consequences. So you're not going to forgive me? She asked, tears streaming down her face. I already forgave you, Tanya. I told her honestly. Forgiving you was necessary for my own peace of mind. But forgiving doesn't mean forgetting or allowing you to hurt me again. Forgiving doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. Forgiving doesn't mean giving you another chance to destroy my life. I left her weeping in the mall and walked away, towards my new apartment, where my new life awaited. A life where I was no longer anyone's victim, where I no longer had to pretend that abuse was love, where I no longer had to sacrifice my dignity to maintain toxic relationships. For the first time in decades, I was completely free. A year after that encounter at the mall, my life had taken a path I never could have imagined. At 67, I awoke on that spring morning in my beautiful apartment, sunlight filtering through the white curtains I had chosen myself, without anyone dictating that they were too expensive or unnecessary. I brewed my coffee in my small but perfectly functional kitchen, and then stepped out onto my balcony to admire the gardens of the residential complex. In the distance, I could see other residents enjoying their morning routines, exercising, tending to their plants, or simply savoring the peacefulness. We were all seniors who had chosen to live our final years with dignity and independence. Good morning, Evelyn Johnson, my neighbor Shauna, a 72-year-old woman who had become my dearest friend, greeted me cheerfully. Ready for our dance class today? I smiled, reflecting on how I had begun taking dance classes at 67, something I had never imagined doing. More than ready, Shauna, I replied. These old bones still have a lot to give. During that year, I had rediscovered a version of myself that had been dormant for decades. Free from the constant pressure to please Tanya, free from the stress of walking on eggshells in my own home, I had blossomed like a flower finally reaching for the sunlight. I had enrolled in painting classes and unexpectedly discovered a natural talent for landscapes. My paintings now adorned the walls of my apartment, and I had even sold several at the local art fair. Miss Baker, the fair organizer, had commented, "Your paintings convey a peace and wisdom that touches people's hearts." I had also joined the volunteer group at the Golden Hope Foundation, the same organization that would eventually inherit my estate. I worked 3 days a week assisting other seniors who had been abandoned or mistreated by their families. Evelyn Johnson, Ms. Bernice, an 81-year-old woman who had sought refuge at the foundation after her children evicted her from her home, shared, "You understand our pain because you lived it firsthand." At the foundation, I had become an unofficial counselor of sorts. Individuals who arrived feeling broken and hopeless found in my story a beacon of hope, an example of the possibility of recovery, of rebuilding a life of dignity after profound family betrayal. Miss Evelyn Johnson, Mr. Leon, a 75-year-old man whose children had emptied his bank accounts, asked me, "How did you manage to forgive and move on?" I replied, Mr. Leon, forgiving doesn't mean forgetting or allowing them to hurt us again. Forgiving means freeing our heart from the poison of resentment so we can live in peace. But living in peace also means moving away from those who hurt us, even if they share our blood. My work at the foundation had given me a purpose I never expected to find at this stage of my life. We had helped 47 seniors recover money stolen by their families. 23 had managed to overturn fraudulent documents that declared them incompetent, and 15 had found safe, new homes after being evicted by their own children. But the most important thing I had discovered was my own self-worth. For 66 years I had measured my value by how much I could give to others, how much I could sacrifice, how much pain I could endure in silence. Now I understood that my value as a person didn't depend on my usefulness to others, but on my ability to be true to myself, and to respect my own boundaries. As for Tanya and Marcus, I occasionally received updates about them through mutual acquaintances. They had been forced to move to a smaller, more economical apartment. Marcus had definitively lost his chances for promotion and was now employed in a lower-paying job. Tanya had to take on an additional part-time job to manage their mounting debts. But the most frequent updates concerned the state of their marriage. Without my house as a fallback plan, they began blaming each other for the failure of their scheme. Ms. Hattie, my old neighbor, reported that they were constantly arguing over who was responsible for their predicament. Interestingly, this didn't provide me with any vengeful satisfaction, only a profound sadness for the choices they had made. They had not only destroyed their relationship with me, but also their relationship with each other. Greed had proven to be a destructive poison, contaminating everything it touched. 6 months prior, I received a letter from Tanya. I didn't open it immediately. It took me 3 days to decide whether I even wanted to read what she had to say. Finally, I opened it in the presence of Shauna, my neighbor, for emotional support. Dear Mom, the letter began. I know I have no right to ask you for anything, but I need you to know that not a day goes by that I don't regret what I did to you. I've been going to therapy, and now I understand that my actions were unforgivable. The letter continued. I am not writing to ask for your forgiveness or to be back in your life. I just want you to know that I finally understand the harm I caused you. The therapist helped me understand that my actions were not born of financial desperation, but of a selfish mindset that I had developed over the years. I got so used to receiving your unconditional help that I stopped seeing you as a person with rights and feelings, and started seeing you as a resource that I could exploit. Now I understand that you deserved respect, genuine affection and care in your golden years. Instead, I gave you manipulation, lies, and betrayal. I have lost the best mother in the world because of my own greed and stupidity. The letter ended with a phrase that brought tears to my eyes. I don't expect your forgiveness, Mom, because I know I don't deserve it. I just hope you are happy and that you find the peace you always deserved. Tanya's letter took weeks for me to fully process. On the one hand, I was relieved that she finally grasped the gravity of her actions. On the other hand, it was already too late to mend our relationship. Some wounds, even if they heal, leave scars too deep to allow things to return to how they once were. I responded with a brief but sincere letter. Tanya, I accept your apology, and I'm glad to know you're seeking professional help. I forgive you because holding a grudge would only harm me, but forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean I can trust you again. I wish you the best in your life, but my life is now my own. Peace finally without you. With affection but without a path back. Your mother. On the quiet evenings in my new home, I often reflected on the profound lessons this experience had taught me. The most significant was the understanding that true love never seeks to control or diminish the beloved. True love respects, cherishes, and prioritizes the well-being of the other, expecting nothing in return. It's a selfless and unconditional devotion. I also learned that establishing healthy boundaries isn't cruel. It's essential for emotional survival. For decades, I'd mistakenly equated extreme self-sacrifice with maternal love. In reality, I'd been inadvertently teaching Tanya that she could mistreat me without consequence, allowing a pattern of disrespect to take root. I often shared this insight with the women in my support group at the foundation, saying, the most valuable legacy we can leave our children isn't financial wealth, but the example that all people, including their mothers, deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. That spring morning, sipping coffee on my balcony, Attorney Ford called. Miss Baker, he began, I have some news that may interest you. 3 other cases mirroring yours have come to light. The affected families want you to share your experiences and insights on navigating similar situations. Of course, attorney, I replied without hesitation. If my story can help others protect themselves, I'm more than happy to share it. That afternoon, painting a mountain landscape, I reflected on the incredible transformation of the past 18 months. I transitioned from a silent victim to an empowered survivor, now helping others discover their own inner strength. My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was Shauna, inviting me to dinner at the new restaurant downtown. Evelyn Johnson, she said with her infectious enthusiasm. Let's celebrate life. As I prepared to go out, I looked in the mirror and saw a completely different woman than the one I'd been a year and a half earlier. My eyes sparkled with a newfound confidence, a self-assurance I'd never possessed before. My posture was erect and proud, my smile genuine and unburdened. Evelyn Johnson, I whispered to my reflection, at 67, you finally learned that your life belongs solely to you, and that you deserve to live it with dignity, joy, and peace. That night, dining with my chosen family, my true support system, instead of my toxic biological family, we toasted to new beginnings, to the wisdom gained through experience, and to the courage to stand up for what's right regardless of the consequences. As I raised my glass of wine, I thought of all the women currently enduring similar mistreatment, believing they have no options, that enduring abuse is somehow synonymous with familial love. If my story could reach even one of those women, giving her the courage to protect herself, then everything I'd endured would have been worthwhile. Because sometimes the most precious inheritance isn't monetary wealth, but the courage to be true to oneself, and the understanding that it's never too late to begin anew. It's never too late to choose dignity over appeasement, truth over a false sense of peace, and self-love over self-destructive sacrifice. And it is never ever too late to be free. Did you enjoy my story? And from which city are you listening? Let's connect in the comments. If you appreciated the story, please show your support by sending a super thanks. It helps me continue sharing these stories. Thank you so much for your kindness and support. I eagerly anticipate your comments. On the screen you'll find 2 more life stories I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.